Hello guys, today I'm going to be discussing this video. This model got fired for a Facebook post. Based off that title, you already feel sympathy for this person, don't you? Sure you do. Any normal person would. Oh, they must have made a stupid mistake on Facebook, or what, just a Facebook post, something like that. Well, let's look at what that Facebook post is, but first, they're gonna play some type of sad music and talk about their difficult life or something like that. Not exactly. I've already seen part of this video. I've seen it up until they started describing what the Facebook post is. So anyways, let's play this.
My name's Monroe Bergdorf. You probably know me from being the first transgender model to model for L'Oreal, but also to be the first trans model to be sacked after a week.
So they're transgender. You may not be able to hear very well what they're saying. I'll turn it up just in case. So they're transgender, and they're a model. They lasted a week. And it says, this model was fired for talking about race. Now, that just sounds, oh, they said something controversial about race. That makes people uncomfortable. That's not fair. Why would they get fired for that? That's what I was thinking. Not exactly. I knew that there was probably something they were hiding. But that's what they want you to think at the beginning here. Play sad music, or as the captions say, soft music.
When I first really started working, it was around the transgender tipping point. Trans was starting to be seen as uncharted territory by the media. Caitlyn Jenner had just come out, Transparent had just kicked off. There was a very big interest in trans bodies. And obviously, because I work within the fashion industry and the makeup industry, there was that glamorous side. So I guess it was kind of the accessible version of a transgender person. In the beginning of my career, I was just hired on a tokenistic basis. I think that people wanted my look, but they didn't necessarily want what comes with it.
Well, of course, because you're a model. People want the look. They don't care about the rest of you. That's part of being a model. When you're a model, you get pictures taken of you. Or if you get really big, people care about your relationships. That's all.
And when I started talking about race, I think people realized that,
oh, talking about race. What exactly did you say about race? You gonna get to that?
Okay, she's not really that accessible because race makes people feel uncomfortable.
Is that what it is? Is that it makes people feel uncomfortable? Let's see.
And then you see what happened with the L'Oreal thing. It just kind of blew up.
During August 2017, Bergdorf posted a response to the violence that took place in Charlottesville, VA, the previous month on Facebook. Oh, it's just a response to Charlottesville. Pretty common thing. Now, here it is. Excerpt from the original Facebook post. So, it makes it sound like this isn't the real full Facebook post. So, I don't know what else there was, but this is bad already. Honestly, I don't have energy to talk about the racial violence of white people anymore. Yes, all white people. Because most of y'all don't even realize or refuse to acknowledge that your existence, privilege, and success as a race is built on the backs, blood, and death of people of color. Your entire existence is drenched in racism, from microaggressions to terrorism. You guys built the Blue Point for this. Come see me when you realize that racism isn't learned. It's inherited and consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. Once white people begin to admit that the race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth, then we can talk. Until then, stay acting shocked about how the world continues to stay at the hands of your ancestors and your heads that remain buried in the sand from your hands over your ears. Here it comes. Over a minute into the video, of sad music and sympathy, you finally hear, or read actually, that this lady very clearly hates white people, calls every white person racist, which is obviously not true, and then says most of us don't even realize or refuse to acknowledge that our existence, privilege, and success as a race is built on the backs, blood, and death of most people of color. Maybe if you're thinking about hundreds of years ago when most of us weren't even alive, yes, hundreds of years ago. If you look in a place like South Africa, for example, where white people are the minority and treated like garbage, and black people are not, maybe if you actually looked into that, you have a different opinion. But no, we're privileged. We have success just because we're white, just because of our skin color. You know what this kind of sounds like? Racism. Your entire existence is drenched in racism, says the person who made a racist post just now. From microaggressions to terrorism. Yep, that's right. Being white means you're a terrorist. Because there are no Middle Eastern terrorists or anything. You know, the most terrorists are white people. And our existence is terrorism. You guys built the blueprint for this. Come see me when you realize that racism isn't learned, it's inherited and consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. Now, based on the fact that you are incredibly racist against white people, because yes, other races can be racist because the definition of racism is just believing that another race is inferior. It's inherited, so I guess your parents were racist, and your entire line of family, and consciously or unconsciously passed down through privilege. So like I said, you must be very privileged, and your parents must be privileged, which, by the way, you're, rich and famous now because of this, and you seem to be very well off, more well off than me. Now, that couldn't be because you're privileged, is it? It couldn't be because, people treat you differently because you're transgendered or because you got fired for this. All in the recent months. Couldn't be because people walk on eggshells around you. No. Once white people begin to admit that their race is the most violent and oppressive force of nature on earth, yes, if you are white, you are violent and oppressive, and you are the worst thing imaginable. That, of course, is not a racist idea, is it? Then we can talk. No, we are allowed to say what we want, and not allowing white people to do that is racism and oppressive. Until then, stay acting shocked about how the world continues to stay at the hands of your ancestors and your heads that remain buried in the sand with your hands over your ears. That last part doesn't even need explanation. This is the most racist thing ever, and it is not surprising that you got fired for this. If this was about any other race or any other group of people in general, the person who posted it would get fired. Why should you be surprised that you're fired? Why are you entitled to be allowed to make a post like this and not get fired for it? Because a white person would. You're racist. Sad music plays. I think it's funny that comment didn't even last long. I paused it. It lasted like seconds, so you couldn't read it. Being vilified and reviled across the internet. Yes, that is because she is a horrible racist person.
I knew that the article was going to come out a day before it did because the Daily Mail contacted L'Oreal's publicist, and then L'Oreal contacted me and then let me know the Daily Mail has been sent this post and it's a screenshot, so it wasn't the full article.
Let's read the screenshot she was sent. In a lengthy Facebook rant, she wrote, "Honestly, I don't have the energy to talk about the racial violence of white people anymore. Yes, all white people." And then it reads out the post in little chunks. All that she got was a screenshot of her post.
Screenshot of what you've said on Facebook. And I was like, okay, yeah, sure. But I said this a month ago and it was in response to a terrorist act. So
just because it was a response to a tragic, as you call, terrorist attack or terrorist act doesn't mean that it's not racism. Terrible. And terrible.
I was impassioned, of course I was enraged. We should all be angry about terrorism.
You're not angry about terrorism, you're angry about white people. You hate white people. That is very evident by your post. Whether or not it was a month ago, any other person would get fired for that. Any other person would get fired if they said that about any other racial group.
Now, of course I was annoyed because it was taken out of context and...
How in the world could that be out of context unless afterward you put something like, "I hate when people say stuff like this." Not even BuzzFeed put in the full message. If you want to show the full message and explain what really was said, that would be great. Hope they do that in this video.
The screenshot that they had only showed a small part of what I actually said.
Well, it's a paragraph. It's a pretty big paragraph, and it's a terrible thing to say. So, yeah.
So it just made me look like I was having a rant.
Does sound like a rant to me. Can you show the full post? L'Oreal provided the following statement to BuzzFeed News when contacted about the decision. L'Oreal supports diversity and tolerance towards all people, irrespective of their race, background, gender, and religion. The L'Oreal Paris True Magic campaign is a representation of these values, and we are proud of the diversity of the ambassadors who represent this campaign. We believe that the recent comments by Monroe Bergdorf are at odds with these values, and as such, we have taken the decision to end partnership with her. L'Oreal remains committed to celebrating diversity and breaking down barriers in beauty. That makes sense. That is a good statement. That is a nice statement to make afterwards. I have nothing wrong with this. And if anybody has anything wrong with that, that is incredibly stupid.
I felt really let down by L'Oreal that they didn't listen to me.
Oh no, they didn't agree with me based on the fact that I hate white people and didn't allow me to make racist comments as I practically represent the company temporarily.
And that I explained how I felt and I explained why I wrote what I wrote.
Well, I really hate white people, and, you know, it was a response to Charlottesville, so you should let me continue to hate white people.
And also the fact that the campaign was celebrating diversity and celebrating women of all colours.
Yes, so why not allow white people in it?
And it was a response to lack of diversity, lack of inclusivity within the
I so hate white people. By the way, that's just a response to a lack of diversity.
Industry. I was acknowledging why there's lack of diversity and lack of inclusivity, but then that's also why I was sacked. The response was probably the most difficult thing that I've had to deal with in my life to date. When it first broke, I was receiving countless amounts of abuse. It got...
Oh no, people didn't like the fact that I talked about how much I hated white people because they're all violent, forceful acts of terrorism just in their existence and should all stop existing.
To about 2000.
He was born a man and still a man until until the day he dies. It doesn't make any sense. Once again, a man has taken a job that should have gone to a woman. That's your own kind doing that there. Ouch, my eyes. Now, it doesn't exactly state here whether or not they're talking about the comment or whether they're talking about the person. And the ouch, my eyes were disgusting. I want to vomit thing. She's a racist and it's hilarious that she has lost this joke. Yes, that is an entirely true comment. When you say something racist and people call you a racist, that is not abuse.
Abusive comments every half an hour. I had death threats. I had people threatening to rape me.
Now, that is wrong, but anybody who gets called out for being racist is going to get something like that. Nobody should have to go through that. Nobody should have to read death threats or rape threats. I've gotten death threats, and my family members have gotten rape threats from very specific people. I have had a stalker before that sent that stuff to me, but in that case, all I did was make that person angry personally. I did not send out a racist message that was hateful. When you send out something hateful, you're going to get hate in return. That's how it works. And I'm not advocating hate or death threats or rape threats. However, I'm not going to sympathize with you, and most people are not going to if you do something racist and then you get called out for it and something bad happens to you.
I smashed every window in my house. I had people contacting my employers to try and get me sacked.
That happens to people that are accused of being racist that are white, too. So now you might understand the other side, right? No.
I had to leave my full-time job because it became unworkable. It
Doesn't explain why there.
just kind of ruined my life for a good amount of time.
Oh no, I'm a terrible person, and being publicly a racist, terrible person ruined my life. I wonder why.
It forced me into a corner. It was just very, very difficult. I had to re-navigate my life. Aspects of safety, aspects of privacy, aspects of even just like personal friendships. Everything just kind of changed. Some of the things that I would do, just like being like a carefree person, I can't really do that anymore because I've got people.
I can't jump around on bouncy houses anymore because I said something incredibly terrible and racist online. Oh no.
Knowing who I am and having a prejudged idea of who I am before they've even met me. But on the other hand, the support from...
That is funny because it seems like you have a prejudged idea of white people before you even meet them. It's almost like you're being a major hypocrite.
A lot of women of colour have just really rallied around me. Also,
these fellow racists really help me, so why can't you?
so queer people of colour, the way that people just said no, this isn't anything new, we all kind of feel like this. I think that people had a problem with me speaking about racism because
You're not speaking about racism. You're being racist.
I don't think necessarily people understand what racism in a modern day context is.
Racism is racism, whether it happened hundreds of years ago or whether it's happening today. You can be racist against white people. What you said is racist against white people. You hate white people, and that's very evident. You think all white people are racist terrorists. Why should I feel sympathy for you as a white person?
Is white people who never experience racism, they are taught that racism is dead on just calling someone the N-word.
That's what people like you push. And I have experienced racism as a white person. Many haven't. Most haven't, probably. But white people do experience racism. What you said is racist, for example.
Being verbally abusive to somebody, which is just one little nuance of racism. There's so many different facets to racism, and it's a very complex method of oppression. I just wanted white people to open up and try to understand how we feel wrong.
Yes, I just want white people to open up and hate themselves because they're all racist pigs.
Than just say, no, this...
Don't understand what just happened there.
more offensive than actually being racist itself.
That's because you're falsely accusing every single white person in existence of being racist. Falsely. You are being racist.
People don't want to have their behavior called out.
Their behavior called out. That's prejudice right there.
If you've never experienced racism, you do kind of just
I have.
need to take people of color's life experience and work
And I'm white, by the way.
for it, because this is happening and this has always been happening, and up until now people have been scared to say anything.
No, not up until now. That's what the whole civil rights movement that you're undermining was about.
If you're speaking about your lived experience and speaking about oppression with relation to that lived experience, and you have done nothing wrong, I think the main thing that I want people to take away from this is just not to be afraid to speak about racism.
You are racist. I am speaking about your racism. I am not afraid. Now, I bet if you saw this, you would hate me, wouldn't you? Yes. But I'm not afraid to speak about racism, am I?
All people need to not be afraid. My hope for the world is that we start to listen to each other, and also
Well, you seem to be very closed-minded and disregard every white person's view if they don't hate themselves and think they're racist. Based on the last part of what you said, right?
want other girls to feel like they can make a difference. I just feel like we're in a real tipping point of women's voices. I think people are starting to realize, women especially,
This isn't about women or transgenders. This is about race. You made it about race.
that the more of us that talk and realize that if we tap into that sisterhood, if we come together as women, then we can enact change.
Says the former male.